So, over the next 4 weeks, you're going to hear the word sex a lot. So just right now, turn to the people on either side of you and say, sex, deal with it. Okay. Oh no. What happened? I had red duct tape on this table. Was somebody responsible and they put it away? Prem, can you track that down for me? It's a roll of red duct tape. See, I am always leaving things out. Oh, it's right up there. I see it. There it is. Okay, cool. All right, so, cool. Sex is powerful. Even the word sex has power. I'll give you an example. Walk into McDonald's. Did anybody enjoy some nuggets tonight? Yeah, nice. So thank you, Hayden. So try that. If you wonder how much power sex actually has, walk into a McDonald's. And if you go up to the counter and you say, I'd like some nuggets, please. What's the person behind the counter going to do? Be like, okay. And they are going to give you some nuggets. Walk up to that same counter, same person, same environment, and go, yeah, I'd like some sex, please. You are going to get a completely different response, right? Even the word sex, when you see it written, in our culture, it's strange because in some ways we're super comfortable with it and we're just like, oh yeah, what's the big deal? And in other ways, we look at it and we just go, he said sex, right? Yesterday on Instagram, I posted, this picture of Barney Fife from the Andy Griffith Show, like making some silly face. And it's like, when you hear the youth pastor say sex at youth group, and I got all kinds of responses back, like, oh yeah, oh my gosh, Sex has power, and for good reason. God designed sex. Do you believe that? Do you believe that sex is actually something that God put forethought into and went, okay, how am I going to do this with people? How am I going to do this in humans? Okay, there's monkey sex, and there's parrot sex, and there's dolphin sex, and there's all the humans. How is this going to work for humans? He designed your body to work with sex. You are specially designed by God to have sex the way humans are supposed to have sex. He purposed it that way. Now, he didn't have to. And this is where we can get an understanding, fellas. This is where we can get an understanding of how purposeful this is. And if God designed it, then what should we believe about it and how should we handle it? God could have designed sex to work any other way. He could have made it just where sex is only for making babies. It's just for procreation. All right, that's all. And the way that's going to work is two human beings are going to get their faces really close together and they're just going to rub their noses together and poof, pregnancy. He could have done it that way, but he did it. He designed something that feels way better. In fact, he designed you and me, human beings, to have sex in a way where you want to have sex. Where it's like, hey, this is pretty enjoyable. I think I will look for, okay, you're going to post this. This is going to be like way out of context. It'll be like, youth pastor goes on horny rage. Watch, this is going to happen. So my point is, God designed sex on purpose. He designed it the way he designed it for a reason, which means he must have a plan for it. He must have a design for it. And it's interesting that over the years of creation, how sex has been handled. And a lot of times, we think that what we are seeing today is brand new. We're thinking that there is more of this or more of that than there ever has been. But the reality is that sex has been happening from the beginning. He created Adam and Eve And he created their bodies to do the special hug and like it. And all of this has been happening, but if he has this purpose, if he did this on purpose, he must have a way that this is supposed to be handled. And it's interesting, just in America, in the last 50 or 60 years, to kind of see a shift in our culture. See, back in the 50s, there was this show called I Love Lucy. All right? Ricky and Lucy are a married couple. Eventually, they have a son, little Ricky. Looking at this picture, I have no idea how that happened. This was the way that sex was portrayed. This was the kind of the standard of like, oh gosh, 2 separate beds. Okay, they're not getting, when they kiss, it's like they walk up to each other and it's, the safety A, and they kiss lips and like, whoa, what? Whoa. We better make this black and white, right? And then, over time, we became more and more comfortable with the idea of married people having sex. So, the beds, even on I Love Lucy, eventually they slid the beds together. Whoa. Hands off, Ricky, right? Then, over time, we became more and more comfortable with sex where we started seeing the beginnings of and the aftermath of married people having sex. You're like, okay, I know what's going on under those blankies. Okay, that's enough of that. And then we became more and more comfortable with sex in general. And it morphs into, it doesn't matter who's having sex. It doesn't matter why they're having sex. It just matters, in fact, as entertainment, all we care about is that they're having sex. And we're kind of hoping for it. You ever been watching a TV show and you're just waiting for the two, you're rooting for the characters, right? You're just like, come on. You're waiting for them to hook up because that's going to be great. That's going to be a good thing. And we start taking marriage out of the equation. We start taking love out of the equation. We start taking commitment out of the equation. And it becomes this thing where sex gets super casual. And our acceptance and our expectation of what sex is becomes super casual. It becomes this thing where it's not this thing designed by God. It's this thing of going, you getting yours? And if you're not, I'm sure there's somebody. What? You're not in love? Doesn't really matter. Somebody's willing. And it doesn't matter what kind of relationship you have, what gender the person is, whether there's any commitment, whether it's just, hey, we're comfortable with sex. And this causes us to easily get into this mindset. Is it possible to escape all sexual images? It's not. You know why? Because you were designed for sex. You were designed to be attracted. Your hormones were designed to get going, and so there is no way for you to escape, for you to fully escape the feelings, the images, your body. There's just a point in time around your age where your body's just like, it's go time. Let's go. Start looking. And with the images we have of our culture, it is so easy for us to go, all right, start looking. Does it matter what I look for? And everybody around you, the culture around you is going like, no, just have a good time. And we hang on to this idea that sex is good. We like that. We're like, all right, good. Then I want to have sex. God designed sex. So, sex is good. The way God designed it. God designed sex. Here, it's right there. God designed sex. So, sex is good. the way God designed it, with God's intent, with the purpose that God has for that. But get this, sex doesn't only feel good when you do it the way God designed it. You guys, sex feels good. It physically, your body was designed to enjoy sex. So sex doesn't only feel good when you do it the way God designs it. But it will only be good when it's the way God designed it. It will always feel good, but it will only be good the way God designed it. And we need to get this into our brains. Sex is good, or God created sex, so sex is good. The way God designed it. Let's just say that together. Right? So repeat after me. Sex is good. Oh, no, wait, hold on. God designed sex. Okay, some of you, I know you are way more excited about this than what you just demonstrated. God designed sex. So, sex is good. The way God designed it. So as we go through this, one of the things that I want to challenge you with is your understanding and is your belief about sex, that sex is good, is it based on because it feels good or because it is good? Because it's being done the way God designed it. But our culture, we just got done in that series, Can I Drive, talking about our culture says, hey, you should be in control. You should be the one who gets to decide who, what, where, when, why, and sometimes none of that even matters. Just do it. Just go for it because it feels good. And sometimes we even use the circumstances around us as proof that we don't have to do it by God's design. We'll use it as proof to excuse ourselves, to be like, what's the big deal? To minimize how incredible God created sex and God designed sex. We start using things that we can use as proof and go, well, my friend's been sleeping with his girlfriend and nothing bad has happened. Oh, my friend and her boyfriend, they've been having sex and their life hasn't fallen apart. And we start using this measurement of what is good and what is the design of sex. And sometimes those things don't line up with what God says. Hey, this thing that I designed, this thing that is going to be incredible, you're going to like it, is going to be so much more life-giving to you if you do it the way that I designed it. And part of the real difficult thing about this is our culture says, hey, do what we do. Just follow our lead. And Paul talks about this in the letter to the Romans. This is not just, please get out of Bible mode. This isn't a Bible verse for you to just memorize. Like, oh, Romans 12:2. Oh, I know that one. Look at this. Paul says, don't copy the behaviors and the customs of the world. You know why? Because they're all about what feels good. They're not bad people. They're not malicious and trying to destroy you, but if they aren't focused on going, I want what is good. I want what God designed to be good because it's being done according to his design. So he says, don't copy the behaviors and the customs of the world. Let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Honestly, in all kinds of different ways, in each of our lives, we need to let God change the way we think. Now, maybe in the area of sex, you aren't in a place where you're like, oh yeah, I have all these really unhealthy or distorted thoughts of what sex is or what sex should be. I feel like, but in some way in your life, I guarantee in every one of our lives, we've got to let God change the way we think. Because when we don't, all we're going to do is follow what the world says, hey, think this way. And there is no bigger area in our culture as an example of that than sex. Whether it's television or the movies or the porn industry or your friends or just culture in general, the way that we view this is not going, hey, look, I want to see the way that God designed this, and I want to follow the design that God has because that is going to be the best. See, culture says, have sex when you think you're ready. We like that, right? That's like, because that puts it in your hands. It's like, man, Michaela gets to decide when she's ready. Ariel gets to decide when she's ready. Jacob gets to decide when he's ready. Cool, we like that kind of control. Society says, oh, no. Well, no, sex is important. You should only have it when you're in love. Well, what does love mean? Doesn't matter. You'll know it when you feel it. Well, okay. I feel in love with her right now. This is our thinking. This is our culture that goes, look, sex is a way to show that you're grown up. Sex is a way to show that you're mature. Sex is a way to take your relationship to the next level. And these are the things that we need to decide, are we going to let God change our thinking, change the way that we think? Because God says, hey, there are boundaries. There are ways that I designed sex. Oh, it's good? Oh, it feels good? You're going to like it a lot. There are boundaries and limits that God is putting on you to bring you life. Does that mean I don't get to do anything I want? Does that mean I got to tell my girlfriend, oh, it's time to go home? No, I'm not going to come into your room. Nah, it's easier just to kind of feel it out and feel it out. But one of you's right. When it comes to the design of sex and what God is doing, either you are right or God is right. But only one of you can be right. So it's either going to be God, the one who designed it, and God who says, hey, I know the big picture and I know what relationship is and I know what love really is and what love is supposed to be and what I've called you to. Or it can be your friend Kyle who says, dude, go for it, man. It can be your girlfriend who says, I love you all the time to you. And at some point you go, good enough. But only one of you can be right. Either God, the designer of sex, who has a purpose and a plan for your life and who loves you so much, or you can not allow him to change your thinking and walk into this and go, no, I'm sure I've got this figured out. No, I'm sure I'm mature enough. No, I look at our relationship and I'm pretty confident that it's at the level it needs to be. But only one of you can be right. And tonight, I want to throw out real quick a couple of truths and a bunch of lies that we so easily fall for, get tricked into, or justify ourselves right into because, man, it feels good and I want to be able to do what I want to do. And we can so easily end up missing out on the design that God has of going, man, I created sex. I created it the way I created it on purpose. You're going to like it a lot. Here are the boundaries where a man and woman are married. There is that commitment. There is that vow that a husband and wife are going to make to each other that then a sexual relationship going to blow the doors off the place because it's the way God designed it. So here we go. Truth number one, the entertainment industry wants your money. That's the reality. The entertainment industry wants your money. That means it cares nothing about what it shows you, the standard that it sets for you, or what it does as you're watching that TV show, or as you're watching that movie, or as you're looking at that website. It cares nothing about the reactions and the responses and the actions that you take from watching their entertainment. Guys, do you think that it is any coincidence that in that 15 or 30-second movie trailer, they show you every big-boobed, massive cleavage, sex scene, hot, sweaty? Those are the things they show you. The trailer for Transformers, I know it's kind of an older movie. And don't go looking it up. But the trailer for Transformers, there is more slow motion Megan Fox in that trailer than any of the Transformers. Why? Who doesn't want to look at Megan Fox? Ladies, is it any coincidence that the way that love is portrayed, whether it's in a romance movie, a rom-com, a chick flick, on the Hallmark Channel or whatever, is this smooth-talking guy who says all the right things, who knows the inner emotions. And when he works on the car, he unbuttons several of his, and it's hot out, and he, wipes the... That is not an accident. They know what it's going to take to be like, I'm watching that. Or, oh, I get it, that's what love is. That's how I have to feel. And anytime I feel this way, that must be what I should chase and what I should follow. And the entertainment industry cares nothing about how you respond to that. And you take those images and you go back into your relationships, into your dating relationships, no matter how long you've been dating, and you're like, oh, this is what we must be ready for because I saw it. I felt this way when I saw this image, when I watched this show, and so therefore, let's just go for it. Let's go with it. It must be the truth. The porn industry is not in business to do you a service, to help educate you and give you a healthy perspective of what sex is. The porn industry and the things that they put out there are not there to help you understand, oh, this is what quality sex is going to be like. This is what I need to strive for. This is what I need to expect. This is what the woman is supposed to look like. This is what the action of having sex is supposed to be like. And so I'm going to take all these images because, man, it turns me on and I like it a lot. And we allow that to shape our thinking. And there's going to be a point where we'll talk some more about this, but the actual physical effects of pornography on your brain. And by the way, porn is not just a guy thing. The rate of women engaging with porn has skyrocketed. I couldn't believe, just the new season of Game of Thrones, just started. And the number of women who are like, oh, can't wait, Okay, you know how many sexual images and scenes of sexuality were in last seasons of Game of Thrones? 72 scenes of nudity and sex. So as long as we can get comfortable with this, like, oh, well, it's just, it's just television. Oh, well, it's just HBO. Oh, it's just a computer. Oh, it's just, it's just some things I look on my phone. Oh, my girlfriend and I, we just we mess around a little bit, but what's the big deal? And one of the things we have working against us is the entertainment, the stuff that we're putting in front of us. And we need to understand they care nothing about you. They don't care whether you have a healthy marriage. They don't care whether you have a healthy perspective of what relationships are and what sex is. Truth number 2, you don't have to be intelligent to have sex. There is no animal sex ed class. Okay, Daddy Buffalo does not take baby buffalo like behind a bush somewhere. It's like, all right, son, let me tell you how to do this. First, Animals figure this out. There is no higher level of thinking when it comes to sex. And yet we tend to think of this as this thing that makes us mature or really makes our relationships meaningful. And we need to understand that sex is not a higher level of relationship. And if you're thinking this way of going like, oh, well, so often I hear on television and in person, it's like, yeah, well, my girlfriend and I, it's time to take our relationship to the next level. You think having sex is the next level? What level have you been on? Because sex is base. Sex is animal instinct. There is no higher level to sex. Sex does not make you more committed. Sex does not make you closer in relationship and draw you together emotionally and spiritually and relationally. It just doesn't. It'll draw you together physically. And we're going to talk about that in just a second as well. But if we have this idea that sex is this higher level, sex is this thing that's going to take our relationship to the next level, you have the wrong understanding of sex. John 8 said, Jesus said, "You are truly my disciples if you remain faithful to my teachings. And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you" what? Free. You guys, in the years that I've been doing youth ministry, the years that I've been a pastor and I've done premarital counseling, I cannot tell you the number of conversations that I have with young people, older people who are now ready to get married, who we have a conversation and they go, "I'm trapped. I'm stuck. I know that this isn't the way this is supposed to be," or "I don't know why I continue to think this way about my boyfriend or my future husband," or what. And it always comes back to this. They haven't believed any truth. They haven't been receiving truth. Truth has not been what's poured into their life. It's been either what they've seen on TV or what friends have told them or what the culture has said is acceptable. And they end up in this place of just going, "I'm so stuck." Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Do you believe, get this, do you believe, because it should impact your actions, do you believe that God wants you to have an incredible sex life? He does. I'm telling you he does, because he created you and he made you a being who is supposed to relate sexually the way he designed it. But as soon as we start thinking all these other things, as soon as we start believing these lies, it changes our thinking about sex. Lie number one, sex is no big deal. Come on, what's the big deal? It's just sex. And we need to understand this as a lie, that sex is a big deal. It is always a big deal. The fact that you are numb to it, the fact that, seeing a naked person on a screen just doesn't really, honestly, it doesn't really do anything for you anymore. You guys, there is a reason that even though we are in this digital age, you can pull up porn anywhere you want. There is a reason that strip clubs are still in business. There is a reason that Hooters is opening up restaurants every day. Because there is a progression. Sex is always a big deal. It would be like saying school shootings aren't any big deal. Why? Because you're tired of hearing about it on the news all the time, and it's like, oh, another school shooting. Why? Because there hasn't been a school shooting at your school? You don't have a friend or a family member who was impacted by a school shooting, so school shootings aren't any big deal. That's ridiculous. School shootings are always a big deal. Sex is always a big deal. And sex outside the design that God created it for is always a big deal. But our culture goes, no, sex isn't that big a deal. It's just sex. Lie number two, that sex is just physical. What? It's two people coming together, doing the special hug, feels good, everybody goes home in the end, fine, great. And that it stops there. And there is nothing deeper, there is nothing emotional, there's nothing spiritual, that the God of the universe who created sex and created you for sex, he didn't attach any of those other things, he just made it physical. He just made it about hit it and quit it and fine. That's all it was meant to be. And sometimes we treat it that way. We treat sex, and our culture treats sex as recreational. Sex is not recreational. Golf is recreational. Whip out your putter, tap the ball around, get it in the hole. Sex is not recreational. Some of you just got really uncomfortable. But our culture says, it's just sex. And when you think it's just sex, you're going to treat it as recreational. You're going to treat, and it won't matter who you're with, when you're with, why, or any of that. You'll just be like, oh, well, it's who cares? And this is where we get lost and where we can become so hurt. And some of you have experienced this because there has been sexual sin and sexual brokenness in your family, where there has been an affair, where there has been sexual abuse. And that's not the way God designed it. That's why that's so damaging. That's why that tears families apart. That's why it hurts people at their core level. It's not just physical. Sex wasn't designed just to be physical. But when we treat it, see, the way that God describes it is the two will come together and they will become one flesh. One flesh. There is a fleshly coming together, but there is a oneness that happens. And when that is torn apart, can I get a guy up here? Some guy? Come here. Come here. Okay. Come on. All right. You ready? Yes. So, this is the way that God designed sex. He designed it to be powerful. He designed it to be awesome. Okay? And so, Nathaniel decides that, it's just sex. And sex is just physical. Give me your arm.
Just like getting waxed.
It's just physical. What? Who cares? So Nathaniel has a great night. He's having a good time. Somebody said, I love you. So Nathaniel and somebody hook up. And then, well, turns out that person thinks it's just physical too. That person thinks that sex is no big deal. So there's no relationship, and he just goes away. So that didn't feel very good, but he survived it. It wasn't the end. So a little later on, Nathaniel starts dating a girl. Now, it's not going to be like this one-night stand kind of a thing. There's commitment to this. And so, eventually they decide, let's take it to the next level. But then, I've been dating 7 or 8 months, and it's just not working out. And it turns out it's her, it's not Nathaniel, And so, they break up. And over and over and over again, it's just physical. Till eventually, it's not the way it was designed. There are all kinds of wounds. You can sit down. Thank you.
I actually have no wounds.
It's not the way that God designed it. And then, when you're finally in a relationship, into marriage, where you're supposed to be, there are all kinds of hurts and there are wounds and there are things that, and you guys, I have had these conversations with people. Where people, they're hurting. And they go, how did this get like this? Why didn't somebody tell me this mattered? Everybody always just made it a game. It's what everybody was doing. Sex is just physical? It's a lie. God designed you sexually to become one flesh. And there's a tearing that happens when we do that outside of God's design. Third thing, that God is against sex. I can give you example after example in the Bible that not only did God design you to have sex within the bounds of the commitment of marriage, he designed you to have lots of sex. In fact, he describes it this way. He goes, hey, you should have a lot of sex. You and your wife, you and your husband, you should have lots and lots of sex. In fact, the only time you should not be having sex is when you take a break to pray. Other than that, now, it's exhausting, you guys. It's just, what he's pointing out is going, look, you are designed as a husband and wife. You're supposed to come together. It's not supposed to be this thing that's used as a weapon. It's not supposed to be this thing that you treat casually. It's not supposed to be this thing that you kind of forget about. You are supposed to have lots and lots of sex in your marriage. God is absolutely not against sex. He designed it, and he designed it to be awesome. Sometimes people use that as like, I might as well, God's against sex anyway. God hates sex anyway, so what does it matter whether I do it as I'm married or whether I do it right now in high school? Well, there's those verses. You can look those up if you want. That's the have lots of sex verses. Line number 4, that it's impossible to stay pure. And you guys, I get it. I really do, that in high school in these years, it seems like everybody's doing it. And you guys, with how readily available pornography is, with the way that and the standard that our culture has and views sex now, I get it that you could look around and be like, it's impossible to stay sexually pure. How is this supposed to, I can't do it. Let me just throw this out there to you for you to consider. How many people annually do you think die of sex deprivation? How many do you think it is? Exactly 0. No one dies of sex deprivation. Sex is not something where it's like, you have to have, it is impossible not to fulfill myself sexually. I can't do this. But there are all kinds of things, and we're going to talk about this over the next few weeks, of how to live as God has called us to live. Being the sexual beings that we are and having the relationships that we have in the time of life that you're in a culture that says sex is casual, sex is no big deal, it's just physical, who cares? Whatever you see on a screen, you should just copy that because they seem happy. But you guys, it is not impossible to stay sexually pure. It will take a changing of our thinking. And all of us, that should be what we take to God right now. And go, God, would you change my thinking? The areas where I'm giving in, where I'm wanting to believe a lie, or I'm thinking something's true that's just not true, God, would you change my thinking? And you're going to talk about some things in your detour groups, and here are some things I want to just ask you. As high schoolers, I know I can trust you with this. But what is said in here or in your detour groups stays there, unless someone's in danger. If someone's in danger, and yes, sex outside of marriage is dangerous. There are all kinds of things that can happen, and so that's what I'm talking. If you believe that somebody is in danger, or I'll just leave it at that. Tell me. Tell your detour group leader and no one else. This is not for you to talk to your friends about. This is not for you to start rumors, And also I want to ask you guys, the junior hires are doing a totally different series. And so please be aware, before and after youth group, what you're saying, and, don't go telling the junior hires, hey, did you guys hear the putter analogy? And they're getting a whole different talk. So please have compassion and concern because you will probably make them cry. So please use discernment on that. All right, so you guys are going to head out to your detour groups. Hold on, give your leaders a second to get their stuff. I didn't warn them. They had no idea. Let me pray for us before you leave. God, we want you to change our thinking. We want you to, we need you to show us your heart. God, we need you to convict us in the areas where we are believing a lie or we're making up our own truth. And so we ask that you would come and speak to our hearts, that you would guide our discussions, and God, that we would follow you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, look around the room.